Merry Christmas, everybody. I know it's not Christmas yet, but it's December, so it's close enough, and you know what that means. It means that I get to do my Christmas-themed videos, and Christmas is my favorite holiday, and I have just such a soft spot in my heart for classic Christmas movies where I just can't help but get excited for this time of year. And for this year, I'm going to be talking about the Rankin Christmas specials. That's right, they're really weird and awkward, but they're also somehow so memorable and impactful that you see it once as a kid, and you just never forget it for the rest of your life. Those are the specials I'm going to be talking about, and because there's a bajillion of them out there, I figure I just talk about some of the most popular ones, which just so happens to be some of the earliest ones to ever come out of Rankin Bass production. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's the production company that Arthur Rankin Jr. started with Jules Bass, and the rest is awkwardly animated history. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. That's right, kicking it off this month, I'm going to be talking about probably the most famous and influential Rankin Bass special ever to hit the airwaves of the 1960s, which also just happens to be the first ever Christmas special that they made, and it's Rudolph. Personally, I always thought the Little Drummer Boy was the first one, and I'll go into more of why I thought that for a long time next week, but Rudolph has a surprising amount of polish on it for being their first ever Christmas special. And again, that's polish for Rankin Bass animation. This isn't Leica Studios or Tim Burton or even the California Raisins. The animation here is not great, and it oftentimes really puts the stop in stop motion, because a lot of times characters will just move real awkwardly and make weird faces and hold that for probably a few frames too many, but you know, there was a small studio, they didn't have a lot of money, they didn't have a lot of time to make these. It was really only intended to be aired on a TV about this big in black and white, and well, let's just say Rudolph wasn't prepared for the 4K treatment that we have today. But even with the awkward and sometimes cheap looking animation, this movie, and yeah, I'm going to be calling this a movie from here on out, even though I don't know if it technically qualifies, but this one's about an hour long, so I feel pretty comfortable calling it a movie. I mean, it's just about 10 minutes shy of Dumbo's runtime, and nobody argues whether or not Dumbo is a movie. But let me know in the comments if there is a distinction between a Rankin Bass movie and a Rankin Bass special. But back to Rudolph. But really, the movie doesn't even open on Rudolph. It opens on our narrator, Sam the Snowman, played by Burl Ives. And if you want to talk about personality in a special, Burl Ives just brings it as Sam the Snowman. He is my favorite snowman. He's always been my favorite snowman, really. Sorry, Frosty, but Sam just has a classier look, and he's got an amazing singing voice. And for those of you who don't know, Burl Ives was an incredibly popular singer back in the 60s. He did some stuff with Disney around this time. He was on a lot of different TV shows, so he was a household name. And I don't know, watching these specials back, there really is something unique about Sam, and I'm really sad that they never brought him back in any meaningful way later on in the franchise. But I'll talk more about that later this month. But focusing back on Rudolph, I don't know how Rankin and Bass came up with this idea of just building a narrative around the children's song Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, but it is genius, and it is the central idea behind this movie, and really the Rankin Bass empire, because they took that model of let's have a really popular song and create a story behind it and expand on it and turn it into a 30-minute, hour-long special. That is the formula for the majority of their specials. And it's a winning formula because on the one hand, yeah, they're classic Christmas songs. Everybody knows it. Everyone can sing along. You can bring your kids. You can show it to them. They probably already know the song, so they can sing along. But what I really have to credit this movie for doing is actually forming a compelling narrative. Now, it's not the most complex or original script. It's pretty bare bones of Rudolph having a deformity, nobody likes him, but then in the end, he uses it to save the day, and then everyone likes him all of a sudden. But again, what this special brings in spades is personality. You get the personality of Rudolph immediately. And this might be weird, but I always thought that the voice actor for Rudolph sounded like Ralph Macchio from The Karate Kid. I don't know, for me, in my ears, I always thought that they sounded very similar. But Rudolph, you just can't help but sympathize with. He's got this kind of meek voice. He's got the big red nose that everybody hates. And on top of that, they modeled him to look like a stop-motion version of Bambi. And if you've seen Bambi, you know that your heart just goes out for this little deer. And Rudolph is kind of the same way. You really do feel bad for this little kid. But if for some reason you don't find yourself gravitating to Rudolph, we have another character in the story that's also a misfit, that also gets picked on and rejected by North Pole society, and that's Hermie the elf. He doesn't want to be an elf. He doesn't want to make toys and wiggle his ears and sing hee hee and ho ho and all that elf stuff. He wants to be a dentist, which is such a out of nowhere passion for him to have. But you know, Hermie, more power to you. If you want to be a dentist, go and be a dentist. But the elves are not having any of that because he's an elf. He's got to fit in that elf mold, and he wants to be a dentist. Of all the things that they could have had Hermie want to do and want to be, they chose dentist. And it's so random that it makes me wonder, how did they even pick dentist? But naturally, our two misfits end up finding each other and they sing a song about being independent together. You know, saying all this out loud, it really does hammer home just how bonkers these specials really are when you start analyzing it seriously, which isn't really what I'm trying to do here. I'm not trying to criticize the film in any way because it's just not the kind of film for that, but it is fun to talk about. And I guess now's a good time to talk about the various songs in this movie, because if you thought Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was going to be the only song sung in this movie, you are sorely mistaken, and you probably already know that, because I guarantee you, if you've even seen this movie once, you will be able to recognize every song that's sung in this movie. They're just absurdly catchy. From the We Are Santa's Elves song, the Jingle 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 song that Santa sings when he's introduced to Rudolph, the Misfit song, Fame and Fortune, the Island of Misfit Toys, Need I Go On? But now I get to talk about the character that is starting to become my favorite character in Rudolph, and for a long time my favorite character was the Bumble. Because while I know a lot of kids were always terrified of this thing, and I can kind of see why, the way they build him up as this abominable snow monster of the north, you don't see him right away. What's most common is you'll hear his roar early on. And while I haven't confirmed this, I'm pretty sure that that's the same roar that King Kong makes in the original King Kong, which actually kind of makes sense. The Bumble is clearly a primate-like creature. He's a Yeti, so, you know, kind of close enough. Plus, he's stop motion, like how King Kong was stop motion. And if that was intentional, awesome reference. If not, it might be the thing that's always really endeared me to the Bumble, because even as a little kid, I loved King Kong, even the stop motion one. I never thought King Kong was scary, or even the bad guy. I always felt terrible whenever King Kong would die at the end. Spoilers for that movie, by the way. But while the Bumble was always my favorite as a child, Yukon Cornelius has got to be my favorite as an adult. A close second being Sam the Snowman for just the cool factor. Pun intended. But watching this again, I've noticed a few things about Yukon Cornelius that I kind of missed in the past, and I've got a theory about him. And I can't take all the credit for this theory, or maybe I can take none of the credit, because I've seen this somewhere on the internet. I can't remember where I first saw it, but when I watched this movie again, that all came back to me. I'm like, yeah, that theory's got to be true. And it's the theory that Yukon Cornelius is a long-lost son of Santa Claus. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that's true, because here you have this dude. He's some random dude. He's a prospector. He's got red hair. He's got a big beard. So already you're starting to see some parallels between him and Santa. And even though Santa doesn't look like the Mickey Rooney Santa of Santa Claus Come to Town, who did have red hair, he is canonically the same Santa that Mickey Rooney played in Santa Claus is Coming to Town. And just watching this again, I picked up on this scene I'm pretty sure I've never seen before, which means that the version I just saw must have been an extended edition, some kind of special edition with a deleted scene, where at the end of the movie, Yukon Cornelius is in the North Pole, and he throws his pickaxe up in the air, it lands, he licks it, and where before he would say nothing because there's no silver or gold that he can taste, he says, "Peppermint, the thing I've been looking for all my life. It's here. I've got a peppermint mine." Now on the surface that is just a pretty funny joke, because peppermint's not something you can mine, but it's the North Pole, it's North Pole logic, so of course they would have a peppermint strain in the North Pole. It just makes sense. Candy canes have to come from somewhere, I guess. But it does show that he was never really after the silver and gold. That must have just been something he picked up over the years wandering around from town to town. But it was the peppermint that really brought back why he would throw his pickaxe up in the air and then lick it. Because licking your pickaxe for silver and gold really won't get you anywhere anyway. You're not going to be able to tell. But you will be able to tell peppermint. But you know how this story goes. The Misfits wander off, they meet Yukon, they run into some trouble with the Bumble, they go to the Island of Misfit Toys. And it's here on the island where you really do see the creativity of Rankin and Bass on display. Because all these toys are fantastic visual gags, except for the doll, which I have no idea what kind of QC error she has that makes her a misfit toy. Feel free to drop it in the comments, but for the life of me, I could never really put together what makes her a misfit. And it's here where misfits make a deal with their king, King Moonrazer, who is also incredibly cool. And I honestly kind of forgot that he was in this movie until right now, and I think he might be my favorite character. He gets like a minute of screen time, but just a lion with wings with a voice that sounds kind of James Earl Jones-ish. He's actually a good king that cares about these toys. Yeah, that's a lion I could get behind. But he asked them that when they get back to Christmas Town that they'll tell Santa about this island, that he'll pick up all the toys and deliver them to a child that really wants it or needs it. And they have a home. They'll be able to be played with for once. And in a very roundabout way, that's exactly what happened. Rudolph and his friends do eventually come back to the North Pole, and there's this big snowstorm all over the world, I guess. It's about to have Christmas be canceled. It's so dense and foggy, it's dangerous, so Santa can't leave the North Pole, but Rudolph's got his big glowing light, and just like the song says, he agrees to guide Santa's sleigh, making him the hero of Christmas Town. And that's pretty much where this movie ends. Oh, except for this one weird moment where I'm pretty sure an elf kills one of the toys. You know the bird that can't fly, he swims? Well, when they're flying over the world and dropping off presents, there's an elf in the bag pulling out toys, giving them an umbrella, and then dropping them down into the houses below them. But then when he gets to the bird that can't fly, he looks at it, looks at the umbrella, looks back at the bird, and then tosses the bird without an umbrella, and the bird can't fly. So I don't know if an animator forgot that fact or the elf actually just committed murder, because that bird is in for a rough landing when he gets down there. That's actually a pretty good segue as I wrap up this video, because this movie has kind of a mean-spirited and at times kind of dark streak to it. Now, it's not No Country for Old Men or anything. It's still a Christmas special aimed at very little kids and set in a very bright and colorful Christmas town with Santa and a talking snowman and elves. So, you know, you can only get so dark. But I do think it's more of a sign of the times, which was the mid-60s, and kids media did have a little bit more of an edge. You look at the Charlie Brown kids. They are relentless to Charlie Brown in every special, and you can see a lot of the same energy here with Rudolph. Rudolph just gets bullied and picked on and belittled, and same thing with Hermie throughout almost the entire movie. And watching it from the lens of 2023 and as an adult, you're like, wow, these kids are ruthless. And a lot of the adults, even Santa and his father Donner, disapprove of his red nose. That is, until it becomes useful. But also the Island of Misfit Toys has a very melancholy vibe about it that doesn't really feel welcoming and fun. It just seems kind of miserable. But all that to say, I really do appreciate Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer for not pulling its punches when it came to the bullying and the teasing and the disapproving of being an outsider, because that really felt like there were stakes and that they were taking the subject matter, I don't know if seriously is the right word, but at least taking it with the weight that this story deserves, which isn't a lot of weight. It's still pretty fun and lighthearted, but again, it's not all fun and games. But now I'm going to turn it over to you guys. What do you think about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer? Whatever you think, let me know in the comments. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe for more content, and hit the notification bell to be notified every time I upload a video. And as always, I'm Colby. This is my Nerdy Talk, and I'll see you in the next video.